Welcome back to the import-friendly Sega Saturn channel. I've decided this time to take a look at something a little more popular and a genre that's well renowned on the Sega Saturn system itself, and have a look at Darius Gaiden. Now, this game came out both in the USA and also in power territories for the Saturn. Unlike some of the previous games that I've covered in this series, this one is readily available throughout the territories and isn't just locked down to a Japanese release. And also what I found with this one, taking a bit of a chance on it, is I was pleasantly surprised with the fact that it is actually in English. So the main story here starts up in English, and the game itself is in English. And in actual fact, there isn't that much in the way of differences between what you would get if you bought the North American release or the PAL release. So I was quite impressed. This is based on a 1994 arcade game, which was originally Darius 3, and it was ported to the Sega Saturn in 1995, and was well regarded by Sega Saturn magazine itself when it was reviewed. The PlayStation 1 version is Japanese exclusive from what I gather. I did see G Darius, which I'm not sure whether that is actually Darius Gaiden in a different sort of different disguise, but the PlayStation 1 version is actually more expensive than the Saturn version, would you believe? But let's get into some of the gameplay here. Now, as you can see from the back, this is an absolutely gorgeous shoot 'em up game. I was so impressed when I fired this up in the machine. Having had this for a couple of years, I got it in a job lot with some Saturn games, and I never really sort of gave it the time of day to play it. And that was a big mistake, really, because this is right up my street. I really enjoyed what I played of this, to do this sort of preview video. The graphics are absolutely stunning. It uses a Saturn to its full strengths, being a 2D powerhouse machine primarily. There's a lot going on the screen. There's not a lot of slowdown as well. I quite like the music. There's loads of ships to shoot, and it's not really too difficult either. It's not throwing too much at you at any given point. It's going to just ease you in a little bit, and there's a nice variation of enemies as well. Some which seem to take their cue from like aquatic life almost. There's enemies that look a bit like shrimps on here, and there's a sort of big fish end of level boss. And everything's presented so nicely. Again, that sort of fish-like, really, or sort of tortoise-like even. And I was so surprised and impressed about how accessible this game was. Now, if you've caught any of the previous episodes of this, I've covered some games which you would think, well, I'm not really going to be able to play and enjoy this game because I don't know Japanese. Whereas this is very playable. It plays so much like the PAL version from what I gather, North American version as well. And what's probably quite unique about this game itself is the price for the North American and Japanese version isn't far off each other, to be honest. The Japanese version you can have for about £30 nowadays, whereas the NTSC USA release is probably about sort of 60 odd quid, 50-60 pounds. The PAL version, on the other hand, is £110. It's craziness. That's how much it's trending for on eBay at the moment. This really sort of piqued my interest. The graphics on this character here, the fish, you basically shoot the gills off the side of him, which it weakens him over time, and if they're firing at you, you've got to basically keep relentlessly firing away. And it's so impressive, the techniques that are used in this, because bear in mind it's a 2D game. There isn't actually 3D features in this game. It's using it's sort of pixel art to simulate 3 dimensions, which is really quite a cool technique. Well, he's toast, I've sorted him out. But what you will find with this game here is that you have so many so much replayability with this, that it gives you these sort of Star Fox like different routes that you can take. So let's go up in the sky rather than the water, shall we? And zone A is over. We're now running into zone B. Be on your guard. So you can pick different levels, and that really sort of adds to the replayability of this, which was seldomly seen in the shoot 'em up genre around this sort of time. So that's impressive in itself. The game starts to get a little more difficult here. As you see, the enemies are actually quite a bit quicker than they were in level 1, and they're sort of homing in on me a bit more. But we'll see how far we can get, and hopefully we don't get killed before we've said anything we need to say about this game. So, I spoke too soon there, didn't I? Right. Getting a different variation of enemies as well coming through, so a bit of different design, a bit of background work going on there as well. I can wholeheartedly recommend this game. I think the Japanese version is the one you want to seek out, really, that it is cheaper than the other two territories, which is the aim of the game here, isn't it? The whole reason for this channel to exist is to help you make an educated decision on whether you should import a Japanese version of the game, and is it friendly to play, which this ticks all the right boxes, that it's accessible because it has an English language sort of overview, and it's the game fundamentally is as it would be if you were going to have it from your own territory. Also, price wise, it's cheaper. It's you're not losing out anything by importing a Japanese version of this game. And we've got our next boss coming in here, actually, a huge battleship, Ancient Dozer. I think we'll probably finish him off as well, hopefully. So hopefully I can sort of try and get you into another level and see what's going on. He's a lot quicker, as you can see, than the first level boss, but the colour palette's very similar. He's a sort of similar, sort of goldy yellow colour the previous one was. Lots going on the screen here. Look at this, all these effects. This is really showing off the Saturn, in my view, nicely. And I don't usually like sort of the side-scrolling shoot-'em-up games, but this one's really doing it for me. And this is actually the first shoot-'em-up game that I've got for the Saturn, because most of them are so expensive, and this one is so incredibly cheap in comparison, that this should be your starting point of any shoot-'em-up collection for the system. And you're moving on to things like Thunder Force and Radiant Silver Gun and such like, as you sort of explore the library of Japanese games more. There's so much difference between what came out in Japan and what came out in other territories. It's almost like a different console, it really is. This is absolutely grand stuff, and didn't sell very well at all in PAL territories, sold reasonable in the NTSC USA market, but sold predictably the best in the Japanese market, so hence why copies are very easy to find, very cheap on eBay at the moment. But make no mistake that the Saturn winds of change are happening, that games are getting more and more valuable as they get more and more exposure over time, more and more videos like these from more prolific YouTubers, really sort of showing the games off now, sort of showpieces, and that's changing the value and the market direction now. People are looking at not seeing the Japanese games as sort of a lesser version, and in some respects people are actually buying Japanese versions over their own territory because there isn't much in the way of differences. Right, let's go for like a more spacey zone here now, shall we? Right, as I sort of said there, that you can choose multiple paths to go. It's very much like Star Fox, isn't it, with that? That's what it very much reminds me of. And again, we've got sort of different crafts and stuff like that, these sort of minion ones, and then gun turrets and asteroids and all sorts of things that are going to ruin your day. That's impressive. See the sort of cylindrical space waste there, which is really cool. And the game's littered with effects like that yours to find once you sort of boot up and explore a little bit more of it. So as it stands with this getting my recommendation, I think it absolutely would. And for the price it is, I think you'd be foolish not to pick this up and add it to your collection today, and really sit down, knuckle down and enjoy it. Even if it's not really your sort of genre, I would still recommend picking up and playing this game, because it is accessible to anyone. So catch my previous episodes if you feel like it, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.